Good morning. It is good to be with you on this Monday morning. I'm Jessica Layton, in for Joe in Savannah today. There are new questions this morning over a potential deal to end the war with Iran. Yesterday, President Trump said he will not, quote, rush into a deal to end the conflict, writing on Truth Social that time is on our side. Now, the move is a reversal from his statement just the day before that a deal had been largely negotiated, which was followed by swift criticism from senior Republican lawmakers. Senator Ted Cruz warning a deal could be a disastrous mistake amid concerns over what it might mean for Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Meanwhile, details of a potential agreement are beginning to emerge.
We have what I think is a pretty solid thing on the table in terms of their ability to open up the straits, get the straits open, enter into a very real, significant, time-limited negotiation on the nuclear matters, and hopefully we can pull it off.
But as the administration touts the proposed agreement, Iran state media is offering some contradictory statements, including on the opening of the critical Strait of Hormuz. NBC's news chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel is in Jerusalem with the latest. Richard, good morning.
A senior negotiator directly involved in the talks told me this morning that it remains unclear where the two sides are going. There are reports about progress, that the two sides, the United States and Iran, have agreed, at least in principle, to a framework agreement extending the current ceasefire by another 60 days to allow for more negotiations to permanently end the war. But U.S. officials, Iranian officials all say that nothing has been finalized. In fact, President Trump is still saying that there's a distinct possibility that the United States could resume direct military strikes against Iran. He told Axios over the weekend that it's 50-50. There will either be a deal, which he says will be better than the deal signed between President Obama and Iran, or the U.S. will bomb Iran back to kingdom come. So either diplomacy or full-on war. And at this stage, the Iranians are saying either way, they are focused on their defenses. They are not ready to capitulate, and they will hold on and hold off the American advance on the Strait of Hormuz for as long as necessary.
For more on this, let's bring in former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and author of the briefing book on Substack, Joel Rubin. He's also the author of the new book, Saving Democratic Foreign Policy. Joel, great to have you here with us this morning. We saw more of what seemed to be progress and then pulling back from the president over the weekend on that deal with Iran. A deal went from largely negotiated on Saturday to the president then saying there's no rush. So what does this tell you about where negotiations stand right now?
Yeah, Jessica, it's great to be with you, and happy Memorial Day. Look, I believe that we're right now in a diplomatic quagmire. There's clearly no interest in restarting the war on the president's side, but that doesn't mean he's going to get what he wants out of these negotiations. And I think that's why we're seeing the slowdown right now in closing out this first phase of a deal. But you know, Jessica, even if a first phase is done, that's only the beginning. The core issues are still going to remain. The question of Iran's nuclear program, of its support for regional terrorist proxies, the question, quite frankly, of overall sanctions that the United States has on Iran. Those are all sort of being punted for a later date. So there's a lot of uncertainty. Right now, clearly, President Trump wants to end this immediate fighting and give a signal to the markets that oil will begin to flow. And that's, I think, his high priority right now.
Joel, when we talk about leverage and the advantages here, who has the advantage? Is it Iran having more leverage in negotiations? And what do you think the U.S. is willing to do in terms of concessions in order to make a deal?
Well, you know, we both have leverage in theory, and certainly in the United States, we have leverage with our sanctions and the military apparatus and pressure around Iran. But Iran has leverage not just with the Strait of Hormuz, but also the reality that it doesn't seem to mind if its people suffer by closing these straits. And they are suffering. They're losing a significant amount of revenue because of the American blockade and the strait. And they apparently can hold out for a lot longer and harm their people more than our system wants us to harm our people. And that's not a bad thing, but that means that they have a little more staying power. And I think for the president, he's struggling to find new leverage. It's why he continually threatens, but then pulls back. And the problem problem here is that by pulling back consistently, he's undermining his own leverage as well at the negotiating table. And so the trade-offs are not just the physical trade-offs, but also the question of, can we restore leverage for a successful long-term negotiation? And right now, we're not on that path.
And Joel, we are seeing some Republicans slamming the possibility of a deal. One of the president's biggest allies, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, warning it could lead to a, quote, major shift in the balance of power in that region. Late yesterday, President Trump pushed back on critics in a Truth Social post, writing, quote, unlike those before me who should have solved this problem many years ago, I don't make bad deals. What roadblocks is the Trump administration running into on these negotiations that perhaps past White Houses also confronted? And what terms do you think they would define as success in a deal?
Yeah, so the core challenge that President Trump is going to face at some point, and he doesn't want to face it right now, is the question of whether or not he can live with Iran having some level of nuclear enrichment. You know, President Obama, about a decade ago, he decided that it was worth a deal that would be verifiable and prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, that it'd be worth allowing them to have some nuclear capacity. At the time, Donald Trump, as the candidate, slammed that deal. A few years later, he exited it in 2018. And so he's going to have to still confront this question in the future. And to prove that he gets a better deal than what President Obama got, he's going to have to get rid of that nuclear program. But how do you do that is a whole other question. And I think that now he's running into that reality. The question of a negotiation that is verifiable, that prevents a nuclear weapon. Can he get that same deal that President Obama got, maybe with longer terms? That would be a better outcome, but it's not the one that he promised he would get. And I think that's why you're seeing the resistance that he's getting from his right flank.
Yeah, still so much uncertainty here. Joel Rubin, thanks so much for your insight this morning.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Jessica.
it. Well, the White House is no longer under a lockdown after that chaotic shooting at a Secret Service checkpoint on Saturday. And we're learning more about the suspect who the agency said was killed during that terrifying shootout. According to officials, he had a history of mental health concerns. NBC News correspondent Julie Sirkin has the latest on this. Julie, good morning.
Hi there. This morning, witnesses describe hearing the gunshots that rang out not far from where I'm standing on Saturday night at the corner of an intersection near the White House. We're learning new information about the suspect in that shooting and what happened to the bystander who was struck by gunfire. We are learning more about the suspect who opened fire outside of the White House Saturday. What is that?
Sounds like fire.
Officials say 21-year-old Nasir Best walked up to a Secret Service checkpoint, pulled a pistol out of his bag, and began shooting at officers, who returned fire, killing him. The White House temporarily on lockdown.
Out! Everyone to the front living room right now!
Best was known to Secret Service. Officers arrested him last year for attempting to gain entry to White House grounds. 5 senior law enforcement officials say he had a history of mental health concerns. A second person, an adult male who authorities believe to be a bystander, was struck by gunfire and transported to an area hospital. Bullet holes and shattered glass left behind the volley of shots at this busy intersection next to the White House. Shoshana Greenberg was at a restaurant near that corner with classmates and barricaded herself in the kitchen.
Loudest noise I've ever heard. I thought this is going to be the day I am shot and killed.
The president commending police and the Secret Service, conspiracy theories swirling around the internet minutes after the shooting. Misinformation posted without any evidence. A similar response to what unfolded 4 weeks ago after a gunman breached a Secret Service checkpoint at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The nation's capital on high alert ahead of high-profile events marking America's 250th birthday. And this morning, some good news. That bystander that was struck by gunfire Saturday night, he's being treated at George Washington University Hospital, and officials say he was not seriously injured in the shooting. Also good news, no members of the Secret Service were struck.
Julie Sirkin, thank you. With less than 6 months until the midterm elections, Democrats right now hold a distinct advantage in the race to control Congress. As the calendar moves closer to November, California and New Jersey will hold their primaries next week. Last week's primary saw a big win for President Trump's MAGA movement when Kentucky Republican Representative Thomas Massie was defeated by his Trump-backed challenger. Yesterday on Meet the Press, Massie told moderator Kristen Welker he does not regret splitting with the president or the Republican Party on some key votes. Here's Kristen with more.
This week on Meet the Press, I spoke with Republican Congressman Thomas Massie, who lost his primary race to a Trump-backed candidate, about the efforts to unseat him. All right, well, let's turn to the big news, the reason why you're here. You did lose your bid for re-election this past Tuesday after serving 7 terms in Congress. Why do you think you lost this race, Congressman?
Well, listen, since the day I got to Washington, D.C., I've been doing this job like I thought people wanted you to do it. I read the bills. I didn't give my voting card to the speaker. I've never given it to a president. I don't even give my voting card to the Freedom Caucus. I vote for people over party. And, you know, that means 10% of the time I vote against the party. I've exposed a lot of things in Washington, D.C., the cronyism. I would say, you know, and also bankrupting our country, whether it's Republicans or Democrats. I point out how they're bankrupting our country and how these are all fake fights. They love to divide us. I think the biggest crime I committed against the swamp, Kristen, was showing the American people that somebody on the right could join somebody on the left and get something done, which is releasing the Epstein files that everybody knew needed to be done. That's probably the only bill that's passed Washington, D.C. in the last 10 years that lobbyists haven't written. It was written by me and Ro Khanna, and we used the pressure of the American people to cross the aisle and get things done. That's when they decided I had to be taken out, that I was becoming effective. So they wanted to eliminate me. And by the way, they couldn't buy my vote in 14 years, so they bought this seat. This was the most expensive race in congressional primary history. And at the end of this race, we were spending more per day, my side and the opposing side. We were spending more per day than most entire congressional races are spent for the entire cycle.
You can see my full interview and a whole lot more at MeetThePress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press right here on NBC News Now every weekday at 4 p.m.
Kristen Welker, thank you. Well, it has not been the Memorial Day weekend that so many of us would have hoped for, with Mother Nature washing out the unofficial start to summer for so many Americans. The sweltering heat quickly turned into torrential rain and dangerous flooding for millions from the Gulf Coast to the Northeast. And hate to rain on your parade, quite literally, but this wet weather is expected to continue across the eastern half of the U.S. today. Rain and thunderstorms are likely along the Gulf Coast and southeast, where heavy rain threatens to bring even more flash flooding. The weather, as you can imagine, has really impacted travel. Airports across the country have seen thousands of flight disruptions over the last few days. Despite the gloomy weather, though, nearly 40 million people were expected to hit the roads for the holiday weekend. Now let's check in with meteorologist Dylan Dreyer for more on what's ahead after that weekend washout here on the East Coast. It is your morning News Now weather. Dylan, good morning.
Hey there, we have some really wet weather continuing across the eastern half of the country. Flood watches, even some flash flood warnings in effect there you see in southern Ohio. This is kind of the case still for the next couple of days across the southeast. So we have that slight risk in light blue here where we could see the potential for some flash flooding. The ground is totally saturated. We have more rain in the forecast, heavy rain at that, sometimes falling at rates of about 1 to 2 inches per hour. So that will likely lead to some flooding. In the northeast, we will lose this morning's rain by this afternoon. That will exit. Then we'll continue to see increasing sunshine in the northeast, but down across Atlanta, still dealing with those heavier pockets of rain. Not downpouring every single second, but when you get those downpours, a lot of rain will fall in a short period of time. Then as we go into tomorrow, more rain is going to redevelop back across western Texas. San Angelo especially will see some of that heavier rain. We might even see some stronger storms with that next system firing up. So additional rainfall through tomorrow, about another 1 to 3 inches. Higher amounts down along the Gulf Coast through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, where those heavier downpours will fall. If you are traveling today, most of the trouble spots later on today will be down through Jackson into Atlanta, all across those highways in the northeast. If you're traveling early in the day, we're going to still see some of that rain and the ponding on the roads, but then we will see improvements as we go into the afternoon. Airports Atlanta, likely one of the airports will see delays. Same goes for New Orleans. Maybe some minor delays across the Northeast just as things get back on track because of all the recent rain. But we will start to begin to see some improvements. Temperatures will improve too. Denver, Omaha, Chicago, all in the mid to upper 80s today. Still just a touch below average from Little Rock into Birmingham, down into New Orleans. A lot of clouds around. Obviously not a whole lot of warm up there. But as we go into the next couple of days, we'll likely see those temperatures back up into the 90s across Minneapolis, Detroit up to 83. New York finally gets back up to 80 degrees with increasing sunshine. Even warmer for the middle of the week, 85 on Wednesday. Friday, though, we drop back down to about 78. But in general, once we lose this weekend storm system, we will start to see improvements across the country. Back to you.
Can't wait for that, Dylan. Thanks so much. Tens of thousands of people have been evacuated from their homes in Southern California due to a tank filled with toxic chemicals that officials say is at risk of exploding. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson spoke with some people there who say they are scared for their lives. Steve, good morning.
Yeah, the scenario remains the same on the ground. Either that tank fails and leaks out that chemical, or there is this devastating explosion. However, after a late-night mission, authorities say there's a crack in the case, literally.
In the heart of Orange County, crews are scrambling to prevent this tank filled with hazardous chemicals from exploding. Officials say a late-night mission led to a potential literal crack in the case.
What they found was a potential crack in the tank, which could potentially be relieving some of the pressure in there.
Chief T.J. McGovern says that crack could possibly lower the magnitude of the explosion.
Does the crack mean that it's leaking anything hazardous right now? Could it potentially be leaking stuff into the air?
It could always potentially do something, but I can tell you right now there is no leak. And we know that because we have active air monitoring going right now.
The unstable tank is inside this facility operated by GKN Aerospace, a part manufacturer for commercial and military aircraft. The company saying they're working closely with all relevant federal, state, and local agencies, and their priority remains the safe resolution of this incident. It contains thousands of gallons of methyl methacrylate, a highly volatile, highly flammable liquid chemical toxic to humans. If it explodes, officials say the blast radius stretches up to half a mile and would cause severe structural damage, likely dispersing clouds of toxic vapors into the air.
It's like living in a nightmare, you know?
Up to 50,000 people now under mandatory evacuations. Some, like Eugene and his partner Lydia, have had to live in their car, they say, without access to critical medication.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling nervous, scared.
A living nightmare with no way of knowing when it could end.
What's your biggest fear about all this?
It blowing up and then contaminate everything, you know, everything. You know, that's where we live at. That's our home.
Important to say, the threat of that explosion remains. There's no timeline for when this ends. However, if there is that crack in that tank, if that tank is relieving pressure, then authorities here tell me it's at least a step in the right direction.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.